There's a lot of new utility this season and not enough weapon slots to hold all of it, so I looked at all the new utility to figure out what's worth holding and how to best use the new items. Starting with the items that are surprisingly weak this season, the Medallions. Medallions usually are really strong, but the ones this season just aren't that crazy. There's the Unstoppable Medallion that increases your sprint speed and bashes enemies if you run into them, but the bash only deals 25 damage and knocks them back. You get this medallion from eliminating Fletcher Kane, who in public matches spawns randomly at one of the vaults, but in tournaments always spawns at the train vault. And then Shogun X now gives you the Super Shield Medallion that drops a small shield bubble when you pop heals. Not all heals though, only heals that you consume yourself. Anything thrown like the new Medmist Smoke Grenade, Gold Splashes, or Water Sprites won't activate it. But that's not the real problem with the medallion. It's that the shield bubble only lasts 5 seconds and then goes on a 20-second cooldown. Even if you're popping heals that take 10 seconds like a medkit or a chug jug, you'll only get a 5-second shield bubble. These medallions aren't horrible by any means, but when you compare them to the old medallions, they're just kinda meh. I mean, medallions used to grant Siphon, or automatically heal you over time, or give you infinite ammo, and this one just makes you run a bit faster. But they might have made the medallions worse because the weapons you get with them are really good. Fletcher Kane drops the Unstoppable Medallion, but also the Mythic Mammoth Pistol that has 2 shots instead of 1. And Shogun X drops the Super Shield Medallion, but also the Mythic Hollow Twister. So I guess it would be too strong if the medallions were also super good as well. There's only 2 medallions on the map, but everyone will have access to the new Thermites that are all over the map. There's a good chance you'll get them just from opening chests, but you're also guaranteed to get them from the new go bags that spawn near vaults. The main purpose of Thermite is that it's the only way to break open vaults, but they're also useful in fights. When you throw Thermite, it'll attach to the first thing it hits and start damaging any builds in the area. After about 2 seconds, it'll catch on fire and start damaging any enemies in the area as well, even through builds. And then 6 seconds after it's thrown, it'll explode and damage any build and enemies in the area. While Thermite can deal a lot of damage to builds, it doesn't to enemies. The burning does 12 DPS to enemies, and the explosion does 10 damage and knocks them back. So in total, it can deal 52 damage to an enemy if everything hits. But to builds, the burning does 5 DPS, and the explosion deals a lot more. It deals 600 damage to the build you place on, and any other builds that are really close. Builds that are further away will take 225 damage from the explosion instead. Now normally Thermites last 6 seconds, but they can also be destroyed early by either shooting it or editing or breaking the build that the Thermite is attached to. If Thermite is destroyed before it catches on fire, so within 2 seconds, it'll just disappear. But if it's destroyed after that, it will explode and deal damage. So if someone throws Thermite against your wall, you can make any edit to get rid of the Thermite if you notice it early enough. But you can also set up pre-fires with Thermites to get free damage on opponents that are boxed up. You can throw Thermites on a box and then have one teammate shoot the Thermite while the other immediately shoots the enemy. Or in solos, you can force the Thermite to detonate delayed by disconnecting the build that the Thermite is connected to so that you have just enough time to take out your shotgun before it explodes, allowing you the perfect pre-fire. But everything with the Thermites kind of has a big asterisk because Thermites are super bugged at the moment. For example, if you throw Thermites at a wall, taking out your build makes that wall immune from the Thermite's damage until you put away your builds again. But this only works on walls, floors, and stairs, not cones. And in creative, taking out your pickaxe immediately detonates all Thermite and makes them deal infinite damage to builds. But only in creative, not in real games. The only one where I'm not sure if it's intended or a bug is that when Thermite detonates because a build broke, instead of you shooting it or detonating on its own, it only deals half damage to builds. So like when I mentioned using Thermites to pre-fire by disconnecting builds, that only works on players in brick or wood. If they're in fully built metal, it won't break since it does half damage instead. And there's also a bug to make Thermites deal more damage. If you throw it right between 2 builds, it'll do the full 600 damage plus the lesser 225 damage and combine to deal 825 damage to both walls. So sure, Thermites aren't the best item, but they're definitely underrated. It's important to know how to use them well, especially considering you can hold 6 of them and their spawn rate is so high they're pretty much everywhere. You'll for sure have opportunities to use them at the very least off spawn. Sometimes it's even worth the carry if you don't have anything better like a Mammoth Pistol. But let's move on to the many new movement items added, like the Kneecapper, which I'm just going to refer to as the Bat. The Bat has many similarities to last season's Typhoon Blade, but it also has a lot of differences. Holding the Bat out, just like the Typhoon Blade, increases your sprint speed and your jump height, and reduces the energy cost of both. And if you sprint jump, it negates any fall damage you would have taken. Its primary fire is also a melee attack combo like the Typhoon Blade, but it's not nearly as good. The Bat's full 4-hit combo does 160 total damage to players and knocks back on the last hit, much less than the Typhoon's Blade 230. Plus the range isn't as large, so you can't really hit a full team that's in a box like you could with the Blade. But the Bat does do much more damage to builds than it does to enemies. A full combo will do 353 damage to player builds or 235 damage to pre-built structures. But the biggest difference is that when you're attacking someone, your character just lunges at them in a straight line, making it super easy to headshot you. A big advantage of the Typhoon Blade was that it was really hard to line up a good shot on someone swinging at you, but if you try to just swing your bat at someone, you'll probably just get killed. The bat is really good at phasing into boxes though. every hit in the combo except the second one will always phase you through. So if someone's 1 HP, it's really useful for just getting in for that last little bit of damage. The bat's secondary fire winds up a swing that can hit both enemies and teammates. Hitting enemies deals damage and knocks back, but hitting teammates does knock back, but doesn't deal damage. If you instantly release it, it deals 135 damage to builds or 60 to players and knocks them back 20 meters. If you fully charge it, it deals 180 damage to builds or 90 to players and knocks them back 50 meters. You can charge it while running, jumping, or moving however you want. But once you start charging, you can't build, switch weapons, or anything until you let go and swing. The only ways to cancel it is by either starting a wall climb or by mantling something. If you're in the air, the secondary fire does the same thing as it does on the ground, but the primary fire does a 2-hit air combo instead of the 4-hit ground combo. The air combo does 60 damage to players, 95 damage to pre-build structures, or 143 damage to player builds. And the air combo is animation cancelable by starting the ground combo. So the fastest way to break through someone's wood wall is to jump and time the air combo so that you get the second swing right as you hit the ground, to then cancel it into the first swing of the ground combo. That'll phase you into the box. The bat also has durability that decreases as you use it. Each swing of the primary fire costs 0.5%, so 2% for a full combo. The secondary attack takes up to 5% if you charge it to the max, and sprinting a full energy bar will cost 10% or about 0.8% per second. One of the best ways to use the bat in fights is to just use the secondary swing but not charge it at all. Jumping up and hitting someone off height pretty much guarantees they die to fall damage unless they have Sub-Zero's kit. Speaking of which, the next mobility item is Sub-Zero's Kombat Kit. It has a 5-hit primary attack combo that deals 170 damage to players and knocks enemies back on the last hit. To builds, it deals 320 damage, but it's much worse at phasing through walls than the bat. If you don't have momentum, you're probably not getting through. The air attack is just a single kick that deals 40 damage to players and 50 to builds. Now the secondary attack is Sub-Zero's Ice Slide attack. You slide forward and do a punch at the end for 40 damage to players or 100 to builds. But you can also jump to cancel out of the slide early so that you don't get stuck in the attack animation at the end. Unlike the bat, sprint jumping with this doesn't do anything for you. You'd still take fall damage. Instead, the Ice Slide negates fall damage when activated midair. You only get 3 charges of the secondary attack, and each charge takes 10 seconds to recharge. The durability on this is much worse than the bat though. Each hit of the primary attack costs 1% durability, twice that of the bat, and the Ice Slide costs 4% per charge, so 12% to use all 3 charges. The next new set of items are the Gold Rush items. Gold Rush is a new effect that increases your move speed, pickaxe speed, and pickaxe damage. You can get this effect from the rivers near the new POIs, gold splashes, breaking gold veins, or from opening containers if you have the new Gold Rush boon. Regardless of how you get the Gold Rush effect, it'll last 20 seconds and the pickaxe speed doesn't apply to other melee weapons. So you can't swing super fast with the bat or Sub-Zero's Kombat Kit, but your movement speed is increased by 30% and your pickaxe speed is increased by 50%. Your pickaxe damage increases by 25%. So normally when breaking builds, you'll deal about 136 damage per second, but with Gold Rush it increases to about 255 damage per second, not considering hitting weak points. And all of the different movement speed increases this season do stack with the other ones. So you can combine the speed increase from Gold Rush, sprinting with the bat, and the medallion all at once to go extremely fast. None of the other new items are movement items. First, there's the Med Mist Smoke Grenade that heals white health in an AoE for 120 health over 10 seconds. But it's definitely still a smoke grenade also. It's actually really hard to see someone inside the mist from outside of it. It's not like a bush where it's impossible to see them, it's just really hard to see. Then there's the Pulse Scanner that takes 5 seconds to set up when thrown, and then scans in a 30-meter radius for both players and chests over the next 70 seconds. It pulses once every 25 seconds, so it'll only scan 3 times in total before it breaks. And each time it scans, it only shows enemies for 4 seconds and chests for 15 seconds. But when it does scan enemies, it also shows them where the scanner is. And you can break the scanner early by dealing 250 damage to it. Finally, the Porta cover is exactly what it sounds like. Portable cover. I mean, it's pretty useless unless you're in zero build mode. I really don't know why it's in build mode at all, but I mean it has a little window that you can open and close, I guess. You can't even use it to break builds or anything like the old cow catchers could. Just pretend these don't exist. And well, that's all the new utility of the season. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed, remember to like the video and use my code SlyJack in the item shop. Farewell.